If you had an opportunity of walking into State House and getting an honest answer to the question, how is this impeachment against Gachagua going? What do you think the response would be? Okay, maybe you would not be able to get a response. Although I can tell you, based on the information I have, that the answer, the honest answer, would be it is not going well. There are too many problems. That would be the answer. But let us look for clues elsewhere to support that kind of answer. Well, for starters, I can tell you that there is a frenzy of activity in the backrooms, concerning the impeachment of Gachagua. Now, the immediate question would be, if this impeachment indeed is already done, a foregone conclusion, why would there be a frenzy of activity? People would be relaxed, waiting for Gachagua to be impeached. But the fact that that is not what is happening, to me, is the biggest evidence that there is a problem. Okay? And let us understand where the problem is coming from. Because if this was put to the people, to the voters, or if our elected leaders were close to the electorate, such that they would do what the people want them to do, then we all know what would happen. Because for some strange reason, a vast majority of Kenyans outside the Mount Kenya region are against the impeachment of Gachagua. Why? I believe the best way to put it is the way veteran journalist Masharia Gaido put it in his column recently. He said that if the name of Rigathi Gachagua were to be replaced with the name of William Ruto, all the charges against Gachagua would still stand against President Ruto. Indeed, the feeling on the ground is that Ruto is more guilty, Ruto is more responsible, and Gachagua is just being victimized. That is what it really is. Don't make the mistake of believing or thinking that Deputy President Gachagua has suddenly become very popular right across the country. No. Anyway, let us zoom in on exactly where the problem is. And of course the problem is with elected leaders, especially senators, who very shortly will have to vote to make the decision of whether Gachagua's impeachment is going to go through and become a reality, or it will be thrown out. And the crux of the problem comes from Meru. That's right. You see, it seems, if we're to believe politicians from the Meru community, it seems that when the Gachagua impeachment was starting, the Ameru community were promised that their son, Kithure Kindiki, would take over as the next deputy president. And therefore they were very excited about impeaching Gachagua, knowing very well that he would be replaced by one of them, one of their own. But what has happened is that after the impeachment has gone over the first hurdle, which was Parliament, where they voted emphatically to go ahead with the impeachment, after that, what has happened is that there's a lot of lobbying from many other quarters to take over from Gachagua. And suddenly, those who are backing Kithure Kindiki have realized that compare iko high. There's a lot of competition. And so it appears that what they did next is that they approached the insiders, those close to the president, appealing to them to keep their promise and lobby for their man. You know the response they got, according to the Ameru? There was a request for money to facilitate this lobbying. And the figure being thrown around is a very crazy figure that almost looks like it's fiction. But only for those who don't understand how things in Kenya work out. leaders from the Ameru are telling us that Bwana Kindiki was asked for 500 million Kenya shillings to facilitate his successful lobbying to take over as the next deputy president from Bwana Gachagua. What? And we are told that Bwana Kindiki does not have that kind of money. And even his backers cannot raise that kind of money. And the result is, there is a small rebellion brewing in that part of Mount Kenya. And of course the concern there, for those who want to see the Gachagua impeachment through, is that the senator from the region is unlikely to vote for the impeachment. Most likely in protest, because some people feel like they've been conned. So what else is new? I'm sure you know what I mean. Well, those who like analyzing their politics, strictly based on numbers, can shoot back. So what? That is only one vote in the Senate. Actually, it is more than one. There is more than one county amongst the Ameru community. But that is not the main concern. You see, something like rebellion or a protest vote is very contagious. It is very easy for 2 or 3 senators to influence a few of their colleagues. And when this number is added to those who are already going to vote against this impeachment, those wishing Gachagua to go home may find that they have been defeated and that Gachagua remains intact as the deputy president. By the way, the Senate is a different ballgame. It's not like the National Assembly. We have quite a number of mobilizers, akina Okiya Omtata and others, who can very easily turn the tide when the critical vote arrives. Still, in my opinion, all these mounting problems can easily be dealt with by serikali, by the government. There are various tools at their disposal. And if push comes to shove, they can very easily put them to use. For instance, they can waive files. I think those who are regulars of this channel know what I mean. The government has information on you. The kind of information that can land you in jail. And so they approach you with this information. And they waive the file. We have this information on you. But it is very easy for us to forget about it. All you have to do is vote for the impeachment of Gachagua. End of story. The other tools which can be used, like money. You see, every man, every woman has a price. It is possible that 5 million may not be attractive. But what about if somebody offers 50 million and even delivers? A senator can change their minds. That is the harsh reality of the situation. And therefore, in my opinion, the biggest looming crisis here is not in Gachagua's impeachment failing. It is in the aftermath of a successful impeachment of Gachagua and the backlash that will come from the Mount Kenya region. That, I believe, is where the biggest problem, the biggest concern and worry for every peace-loving, patriotic Kenyan, I believe that is where shida nyingi iko. That is where the problem is. And indeed, we have seen some disturbing signs showing us that all is not well in the mountain. In my view, the problem that many of us analysts have is to brush aside the Mount Kenya region. The problem many of us have is to use emotions instead of engaging our brains. or the Mount Kenya people should be taught a lesson, or Mount Kenya people have produced too many presidents in Kenya, or Mount Kenya people are this, Mount Kenya people are that. Hold on a minute. You see, in politics, a lot depends on the heat of the moment. And the heat of the moment right now is that the most influential community in the country called Kenya are feeling cheated. That, by any standards, is not a small matter. And let us not forget that the colonial government thought that the house of Mumbi would be a walkover. History tells us they lived to regret that. You know, there's something very fascinating here. When the colonial government in Kenya started getting resistance from the people of Kenya, from the natives, they were very worried about the Masai community, because the Masais traditionally have been a very fierce community. And history tells us they have resisted up to a point of being violent. I believe we all know that the early explorers into the interior were terrified of the Masai, and with good reason. And therefore, looking at history, the colonial administrators were sure the problem would come from the Masai. And they were also sure that the house of Mumbi would remain meek and obedient, and they would not cause any problem. But guess what happened? The very opposite. The Masai, surprisingly, did not resist. In fact, we had collaborators, many of them, including Laibon Lenana. Those were very famous collaborators who were hailed by the colonial government. The Mzungus felt so good about Laibon Lenana that they even named a famous school after him. But the house of Mumbi, the colonial government got a shock of their lives from the Kikuyu community, because the resistance that came from Mount Kenya was serious. Serious enough to put pressure enough to win independence for the country called Kenya. My point is, whatever your opinion is, whatever your feelings are, the Mount Kenya region in Kenya should never be underestimated. And anybody who chooses to do so, does so at their own risk. And most probably, they will live to regret. And you see, like the colonial government found out a little late in the day, the house of Mumbi does not make big announcements. They just act. And suddenly, you find that you have a big problem in your hands. Call me a coward, call me whatever you want to call me. But I can confess here that the possible backlash and reaction from the Mount Kenya region after the impeachment of Gachagua is something that keeps me awake at night. Oh yes. And very instructive here. I mean, it is amazing the way history keeps on repeating itself. Very instructive here. All these problems with the community and the colonial government were triggered by, wait for this one, high taxation that affected the livelihoods of members of the community, and also the Kipande system, which interfered with movement to do business for the community. In my opinion, those were major triggers. And if we look at our country today, if we fast forward to the present, there is a lot of economic hardships. There is a lot of economic hardship in the Mount Kenya region, which has been triggered by, we can say it again together, high taxation by the Ruto regime. History will always repeat itself. And therefore we're in a very precarious and a very dangerous situation over this impeachment of Gachagua. There are many who have understood this, but there are also many of us who are still in the dark. And I just thought it would be a good idea to give all of us a heads up. Because if there is something that is very crystal clear in Kenya today, it is the fact that we have a government, we have decision makers that do not think their decisions through. Yeah, they do half-baked jobs. They think through decisions halfway, 25%. And then they always have surprises being sprung up on them. And even this Gachagua impeachment is an excellent example of that. And guess what? We also have very many other looming dangers which have been provoked by somebody not thinking through their actions and their decisions. And I cover a lot of this in my very latest special report. You can see details on your screens right now, repeated in the description area below this video on YouTube, and also in the comments area. The information here, which is highly sensitive, stuff that I cannot say here on this open channel, but it is very scary information. Okay? And I suggest that you do your best to rush and make sure that you do not miss this offer, because it is ending very soon. For only Kenya shillings 19.99, pop, you'll get it in your inbox. This is also very relevant information if you want to understand completely the serious trouble we are in as a country. Yeah. Even if you decide to be like an ostrich and bury your head in the sand, the country called Kenya is in very serious trouble. Get this information and understand exactly why. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.